Good afternoon, everyone. Hello. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm glad you could be here. And welcome to an afternoon with Lisa Scottoline. Very excited for you all to be here. This is a part of our annual Book Lovers Bash programs. And Book Lovers Bash is this month-long series of events designed to connect readers and authors and just celebrate the love of reading. And it's very exciting to see all of you readers and book lovers here today. My name is Julie Brophy. I'm the manager of the Adult and Community Engagement Department at Baltimore County Public Library, and I'm thrilled you're able to be here at this event. This event was sponsored by our Foundation for Baltimore County Public Library. Thank you to the foundation. So before Lisa, and I call her Lisa now because we're BFFs, before Lisa comes out, I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping, kind of give you a little lay of the land of what's going to happen today. So first up, please silence your cell phones. Take a look now, turn them off, set them to vibrate. Please silence your cell phones. Restrooms, if you haven't found them, are located out in the hallway. Make a left, there's a little alcove area. The Sheridan has very graciously given us water stations. Please avail yourself of them if needed. And a special shout out to the Ivy Bookshop. You might have noticed them as you came in. They are outside, they are all set up to sell books. Please consider purchasing some titles. Lisa very graciously pre-signed all of them. So if you're not interested in personalization, those are all signed books out there. You can just purchase them, which is great. All right, so now a little rundown of the afternoon. So I'm gonna introduce a couple of folks to give you another welcome, a couple of key people. After Lisa speaks, there'll be an opportunity for Q&A. There'll be a couple of staff kind of doing the Phil Donahue, Oprah Winfrey 3 with microphones up and down these aisles for you to ask questions. It's a big room, so it'll be helpful. So we'll hand you a mic to ask a question, and just gonna say now, please be brief with your questions. Hopefully y'all love Lisa as much as the rest of us do and have lots of questions. After the Q&A, I'm gonna ask you to just stay where you are for the moment while Lisa makes her way over to the signing area. And then after that, I'm gonna come back up here and just give a few reminders, double check everybody's set for parking and books and all that kind of good stuff. All right. There we have it. That's all the housekeeping I had to do. So let's get the event started. So today, as I mentioned, is made possible by a generous contribution from the Foundation for Baltimore County Public Library. I want to thank the Foundation for their ongoing support of all of these author events and a variety of other programs and services and things we do. So please join me in welcoming Nick Richardson, President of the Foundation's board, to say a few words.
Thank you, Julie. And thank all of you for coming here today. The Foundation for Baltimore County Public Library supports the library's mission with your help by providing resources over and above what we can get through public funding through the county. And what we do is we try and further enrich the library's commitment to empower the citizens of Baltimore County to explore, learn, create, and connect. My name's Nick Richardson, and I serve as the president of the board of the foundation. And speaking on behalf of the foundation's board, we are proud to sponsor this, prestigious events like this, and it would not be possible without the support of any of our donors. And I'm sure we have donors. I know we have donors in the audience, and I'd like to thank all of you now, and I'd like to thank all of the future donors in the audience while you're still seated. If you're not familiar with the foundation, one way to get familiar quickly is to look on the website. And if you are taking notes or if you have a memory far better than mine, the website, one word, is foundationforbcpl.org. Now, if you walk away from here and thinking, what the heck was that website? Whatever you remember, share it with Ms. Google, and she will be happy to point you in the right direction. Thank you again for coming today. We look forward to hosting many more events like this in the future. And when you do go on that website, there you can probably find, I don't think it's too subtly placed, an area where you can make donations. So the foundation appreciates you here, appreciate your support. Thank you very much. And I'd like to introduce the CEO of the Baltimore County Public Library. Sonia Alcantara, come on.
Thank you, Nick. Hello. Y'all look so beautiful today. Thank you for being here with us. We're just so happy to have all of you here to hear Lisa Scottoline. And thank you to the Foundation for Baltimore County Public Library and our Adult and Community Engagement Department and our Collection Development Department for making today possible. We are very excited to have all of you here with us today for what we hope is going to be the first of many events like this that we can look forward to. We know that library users are big readers, right? Kinda, yeah. So we thought, what better way to create exciting experiences for our community of book lovers than by creating an author series to bring in blockbuster best-selling authors. And who better to start with than Lisa Scottoline? Lisa is a perennial New York Times best-selling author and an Edgar Allan Poe winner. Her new book, The Truth About the Devlins, comes out March 26. She is known for her heart-pounding legal thrillers, poignant historical fiction, and hilarious nonfiction essays and columns. Not to mention being a dynamic and engaging speaker. And I will say, I got the opportunity to meet with her, and she is lovely, a truly lovely human being. Now, please all join me in welcoming Lisa Scottoline.
Oh my God, you guys. Oh, thank you so much, Sonia. I appreciate it. Thank you. Oh my God. You take this? Thank you. Oh my God, you guys, thank you so much for being here. I'm amazed. I'm astounded. I'm out of the house. My roots are done. For you, baby. Thank you so much. Thank you all for supporting the library. Thank you to the Foundation for Baltimore County Library. I cannot even begin to tell you how incredible this organization is. You know it because you use one of these 19 libraries in this system, which we understand is about to get a recording studio soon, or 2 of them, right? But I just want to say thank you to this incredible team, Anne, Julie, Nick, Sonia, everybody. This has just been a wonderful day, and I appreciate all you do. I kind of want to talk a little bit up front about libraries, and then after that, I talk about myself endlessly, and you realize why I'm divorced twice. Right off, you get it. Oh my God. But this is the part where I talk about somebody else, which will somehow even be about me too. I grew up in a wonderful Italian-American home in South Philadelphia. Lots of hugs, lots of meatballs. Not a single book in the house. The only thing that was reading material was TV Guide, and they were all fine with that. And it really was, any school librarians here? Oh, okay, this is some love. Here comes the love show, be ready. So it was a school librarian who took my parents, called my parents in to the school and said, you know, your daughter, she likes to read. And they're like, because my mother was always like, stop reading, it will ruin your eyes. They're always like, go out and play. And I'm like, and please take your daughter to a library. Like, okay. And so they took me to a library and my father sat outside in the car like a dog. Because why would you go in the library? Then they didn't have the TV. If he knew now they had recording studios, my father would have been warbling away, but he sat outside. Now you're me. Now picture being 7 years old and in the library, which is like this sanctum sanctorum. That's Philadelphia for something. And you're like, holy God, how do I pick out a book? And you're also kind of scared, honestly. You're very intimidated. And there's librarians who you mistakenly think are mean that turned out to be saints on earth. Right? The only thing you know about librarians is that they only let you take 12 books out at a time. And you're like, that's me. But I'm wandering around, I don't know how to pick a book. And like I said, we're Italian. We all have really big noses. My mother used to say, you get more oxygen than anyone in the room. Yes, I do. I can barely stand up, but I can breathe. Like if I breathe in, you're dead. So I'm looking at the books, and in my library, there was, they had spines, and there was, on some of the spines, a guy with a really big nose. I'm going, he reminds me so much of my Uncle Rocky. And I'm like, well, those books are probably good as any other book. So I start to read all the books that are the Uncle Rocky books. And it turns out it's not Uncle Rocky. It's not even Italian. His name is Sherlock Holmes. He had an awesome nose, is something a fun fact that I happened to notice. But I was like, that's why I'm a mystery writer today. So, and that was actually how I discovered Nancy Drew. Can we just take a moment to talk about the girl detective? Okay, right? She's got a girlfriend, or where would we be without our girlfriends? She has a man, I remember them. She has her own car, she drives it around, she makes up adventures, she's looking for things that are missing. Usually it's a timepiece. There's a mantle clock that's gone, there's this kind of watch, there's this kind of watch, there's this kind of watch. Then there's like a staircase that's missing. I'm like, listen, I misplace my phone on occasion, but my staircases, I know where they are, man. I'm rock solid on the staircases. In any event, Nancy Drew is my introduction. I have the library to thank for so much. Not just my love of reading, not just my love of Nancy Drew, not just my career, but something much more important. And that's why when a library, especially when it's distinguished as this one, and well-organized, and good-looking and charming, ask me to come and speak, I say yes. I like to say that I am a library slut, in the best sense of the word. And that's because what I remember from the library is my library card, right? Things get, where's your phone? Where would you park the car? What do you remember in your life? What I remember, like my childhood memories, really good meatballs and my library card. My library card was orange. It was a little stiff. It had a metal plate. And it said 3537. That's practically my cell phone number today for a reason. I remember it, and I would play with it because they would ink it with something called ink. And then you would go home and you would do this, and you would play. And I thought, at one point in my life, I thought to myself, why were you so obsessed with your library card? Why is it? Because you remember what you have emotional attachment to. And the fact is, my attachment to the library was not even about books. It was not even about Nancy Drew. Honestly, as loved as I was at home, it was about finding people who understood me. People who, when you were reading a book, wouldn't think you were wasting your time, or would ruin your eyes, or should go out and run around because somehow that's better than reading. And I was with people who understood me. We would say today, saw me. My parents loved me to the marrow, but I don't think they did. And I think that library, they just didn't get that reading thing. They still didn't get that reading thing, but they loved me. And so I owe that to librarians. And I think that card for me, why I remember it, is because it was about self-esteem. If you think about it, it's the first thing you get with your name on it, your actual name. I remember exactly what it looked like. I could tell you what the type was like. You remember when you wanted to get mail? I was like, someday I'll get mail. And then you find out it's all from Beltel, and you're like, oh God, freaking mail. But that card has your name, and is about, for me, was about my identity, and it was tribal. It was, this is family away from family. And I like to speak to libraries for about 1 billion reasons, but mostly I love to listen to libraries, and we'll get to do that at some point. But I like to come and stand in the shoes of the kids who are crossing the thresholds of your 19 libraries in this county right now. Not everybody has a privileged background, but even people who have a privileged background might not be so well understood at home, might need to go somewhere where they can find community and feel seen and feel valued for themselves. for this remarkable thing they love. And they go there and magically they find people who love it too. And isn't that a remarkable thing? And I really think that's the gift that every library and every librarian gives to kids who walk over that threshold every day. Now, I'm already losing estrogen as we speak. I'm weeping for reasons I'm not really sure of. But that is me just saying thank you, thank you, thank you from the heart for all you do. I'm so lucky to stand here today, to wear a nice little jacket. I did lighten my teeth and I drew my eyebrows. I try to look good for you. But I am really just a 7-year-old walking into an air-conditioned library. You had air conditioning. Trying to figure out what to read and getting lost in a book, just like all of you. It doesn't happen without a library, and it doesn't happen without all of you. So I couldn't be more honored to speak here today and more grateful that you're all here. So that's just me saying thank you. Thank you. Page 1. Where do you get your ideas? Francis Ford Coppola, the great director, said, of The Godfather, right? He said, nothing in my movies ever happened, but all of it is true. That's pretty smart. I quote a lot of people that are smart. So you will go, she was really smart. I go, no, actually, I just cheated off of everyone's paper. But I never forgot that. And I think everybody who writes fiction, and I've written nonfiction as well, memoir, is trying to write something that feels true. So where do you get your ideas? That means for me, they have to come from something true in my life. The truest of the truiness, the truthiness in everybody, to me, is family. And all of those things are found in family, the good and the bad. And it relates back to Nancy Drew, because what I loved about Nancy Drew is, as I said, she had these little adventures. They were her own adventures. People who write books, like me, we think about details. What details can you put in the book? How are you going to describe this character? How are you going to tell the story? By the way, you can't tell everything. People have lives. They want to leave at 3 o'clock. You got to get to the point. You have to tell a telling detail. And that means a detail that's emblematic. I will suggest to you that when you think about Nancy Drew, you know her best friend, you know her boyfriend. Do you remember the Roadster? The Roadster is a telling detail on 4 wheels. It's blue. Nancy is the Roadster. Nancy has her own adventures, going to find things, her decision, and she has her own car. She is firmly in the driver's seat. She is nobody's passenger. Okay, that's a really good telling detail. So imagine you're me, and then you start growing up, and you're going, God, I want to write books like these, because I remember Nancy Drew. She was a really strong, independent woman. And by the way, I'm raised by a woman who we always used to call Mother Mary, who was as strong as they come. And I used to have girlfriends who are super strong. And I was like, why? I started to want to write fiction after I was a lawyer for a while. I'm telling you right now, I was a lawyer. I want you to like me, so I hid that fact from you. I don't come out with that, right? I come out with the library card story. I do not come out with I went to law school. I'm no dummy. But here I was reading all this fiction after my first divorce and going, why are women, where is Nancy Drew? All this modern fiction, legal thrillers, this kind of thriller, that kind of thriller, the women are still second banana. And that didn't square with my life experience, because my ideas come from my family, and a lot of them are from my mother. Let me tell you the emblematic story of all time about my mother. My mother was like us, strong, feisty, force of nature. She lived at that time with my brother in Florida. She wakes up one morning convinced that she has felt an earthquake in Miami. She gets out of the bed. She's also very dramatic. Goes across to my brother, wakes him up. Frank. Everyone in my family's named Frank. My daughter's named Francesca. We got one name, man. That's it. Don't tax us. Frank, wake up. I swear I felt an earthquake. It was a quiet Sunday morning in Miami. He's like, Mom, please get back to sleep. Not my mother. Goes across the street. Knocks on the neighbor's door. Wakes him up on a Sunday morning. Brent, wake up. I swear I felt an earthquake. Mary, please go back to sleep. No. Back. Calls on the phone. We used to do this. You know what I'm talking about? Then we did this. Then we did this. She calls who? The Miami Herald, which is something called a newspaper, something else that used to exist. Welcome to the Scottoline Roadshow of things do not exist anymore. She calls the newspaper. She calls the Miami Herald and says, I would like to report that I have felt an earthquake in Miami, Florida. And like, yeah, I got another one, Frank. Hangs up the phone. She's mad. Give me your name. Oh, I forgot. Before she hangs up, she goes, tell me your name, because my mother has a list. The list, okay. South Philly's in the house, so I'm going to have to tell you what the list is called. It's called a shit list. If you don't, you probably have a things to do list. You really need a shit list. Okay. In any event, all the names on the shit list, they rotate. It's like Newcomb of hate. And anyway, he's right at the top. He says, let me have your name. Okay. Guess somebody else has a shit list. All right, fine. They're conflicting shit lists. They both hang up the phone all cranky. 5 minutes later, what happens? Cars pull up in front of the house. The press, TV cameras, everybody. You can Google this on your way home, but not while you're driving. My mother was the only person in all of South Florida that felt an earthquake that occurred at that moment. Where? In Tampa. Do you know anything about Florida? All I can tell you is one's at the top and one's at the bottom. And my mother felt it. So they came to her house. They're interviewing her. My mother's out on the front lawn. She's like, my mother likes a camera. You see where I get this from, right? My brother does not mind a camera. Now, my brother is gay and has been known to be a little flamboyant. So he puts on his best mesh tank top for the camera. By the way, why does he wear the tank top? Because the tank top shows the map of Italy that's tattooed on his chest. Naples is his left nipple. I'm not making it up. I'm not making it up. Listen, I'm the first of this series. You have to get some classier authors next time. Because I'm gonna bring this curve way down. Get Amy Tan, get somebody like that. Okay, she won't have these stories, I'm just telling you. It says Viva Italia, of course, because in case you missed the point. Okay. They bring the microphone to my mother. They say, how were you the only person in all of South Florida that felt this earthquake that occurred in Tampa? She said, I know these things. Believe me, they thought she was a witch. They ran screaming from the thing. And I was like, that is my mother. That night on the TV screen underneath, it said, Earthquake Mary. Oh my God! She was in heaven. And I was like, my mother once other time, it was going to be a bad hurricane. And I live outside of Philly, Malvern, not so far. And I said, listen, you got to come up. No, I don't want to come up. I said, Ma, she was 4'11". I said, you're going to blow away. You got to come up. Stay with me. I make her get on the plane. I make her fly up to me. She gets off the plane. Now, there's another reporter here. Don't give her a microphone. You're going to find out. You can't give us microphones. They give her a microphone. They said, did you come up here because you were afraid of a hurricane? She said, I'm not afraid of a hurricane. I am a hurricane. This is a strong woman. This is us. Look in the mirror. You can write about that all day long, and I do. Then I grow my own little child. I'm divorced twice. I'm a single mother. She grows up, incredible. I changed my life to be with her. It was a wonderful, wonderful time in my life. I was very, very broke. I remember we couldn't go to McDonald's because we had credit cards in those days, and they didn't take credit. And the bottom line is I had no scratch. When I finally got scratched, I took her into a McDonald's. She hadn't been in a McDonald's till she was age 6. So imagine a 6-year-old coming into McDonald's for the first time, never seen it before. We had only before been there in Chili's because we would go once a month. They took credit cards. I had credit cards. She doesn't know how to work in McDonald's. I go, well, it's not, in McDonald's, they don't give you a menu. You have to look up there, there's the menu. And she looks up really loudly and says, but where are the appetizers? And I have to say to her, don't mind this brat. She doesn't realize that she was broke her whole entire life, and now we're not. But when you grow up with a kid like that, you'll inevitably write about her strength. And those stories will come from your life too. That might sound a little bit like your life. So for example, I remember the time she's at college, I go to pick her up and I pack the car up. Have you ever picked your kids up at college? All right, I mean, it's all this stuff. I take it back. If you're a girl, it's all this stuff. If it's your boy, there's a basketball. and maybe a couple hundred baseball caps. I can't even with the, but in any event, I pack up the car. I got all her stuff in. It's me and her. We actually packed through the sunroof. We're about to leave, and there's this crappy red rug on her floor. And I go, well, we're going to throw that away. And she said, Mom, I paid $36 for it. Now I'll give you $50 if we just throw it away. And she, no. Once, of course, I deny her nothing. Come on. And so I get the red rug, and I put it on the top of the car. The car is white. We leave Massachusetts. We drive through Connecticut. We're in Greenwich. You better get your roots done if you're going to drive through Greenwich. We're driving through Greenwich, and the worst rainstorm ever comes down, and the red rug starts to bleed all over the white car. Honestly, it was out of Stephen King. You know how red things like, I'm like, how do you dye these things that the red is like, it's like a bloodmobile. People on the I-95 are pointing and laughing. We laughed the whole way home, and when I get home, and I say to her, like, I'm thinking, how many more times are we going to have these fun times in the car? And I think you're going to have to let her go. Now, there's a joke about Italian mothers, which is, well, there's a lot of jokes about Italian mothers, but one is, what is the difference between an Italian mother and a Rottweiler? And the answer is the Rottweiler eventually lets go. You don't even want to know how long I nursed this child for, but in any event, it's only because they're doing a Facebook Live thing that I'm not going to give the answer later. Anyway, when I got home, I thought to myself, you're going to have a hard time letting her go. It's been you and her forever, and you're crazy about her. What are you going to do? And then I said, oh my God, I actually walked over the threshold of my house. I said, you are asking yourself the wrong questions. Like you used to be a lawyer, you just framed the issue wrong. The issue isn't, how are you going to let her go? Because that presumes that you own her in some fashion. And guess what, Lisa? You don't. You just get to be with her for a time. And it's the best time of your life, like the best. But she's not yours. And as soon as I wrote that, did I make you cry? I'm crying now too. What's the matter with us? I have no estrogen. You have estrogen. Maybe you have a little. Between us, could we fill this cup? No. But when I got home, I thought to myself, that's a novel. And that novel actually became Look Again. What happens in Look Again? Oh, let's see. A woman comes home one day and there's a male, right? And it's from missing and abducted children. And she sees the kid in the middle, and the kid is her child who's adopted. But unbeknownst to her, there must have been something wrong with the adoption. She's completely innocent. This is when I tell you the absolute truth that at the time I wrote that book, and I'm sure it hasn't changed, you could put up a child for adoption in this country and not have to prove it's yours. What? In any event, this woman in the novel she has a quandary right there on page 1. She goes, wait a minute, if there's something wrong with my adoption, do I want to know if that's true? If I go and find it out, I might have to give up my child. And if I pretend I didn't see what I just saw, I get to keep my child. What is she going to do? The question of who owns a child came from that $37 red rug. Hallelujah! It was worth every penny. And then I started to write historical fiction, and part of that came from my family as well. And it's a little less savory. You know, we have any cute stories like, picking up kids at school, because what sort of happened is I started to look at my family history. It all comes from family, and it all has to be true, if not literally or emotionally true, right? And I start to notice, now look, I said we were from South Philly. And I have to say this disclaimer that we are Italian-American, and not all Italian-Americans are in the mob. We certainly weren't. We had nothing to do with organized crime. We're not organized. Okay. I'm just saying to you, I start to understand. I look at my family, and the first thing is I see old pictures from Christmas. And I look at these pictures, and I see a picture of Christmas. Oh, and I remember the Christmas because I got a black BMX bicycle. Now, it was a black BMX bicycle. It was a boy's bike. I got it from my Uncle Mikey. And you remember boys' bikes and girls' bikes? Do they still even have that? I don't even understand, because honestly, the boys' bikes has the extra bar, which if you ask me, that should be on the girls' bikes. The boys, I don't remember a GD thing about the male anatomy, but my senses of recollection was, anyway, you know what I'm saying? All I'm saying is, I was about 8 at the time, and I can tell you that as a little girl who loves pink and still loves pink, I read something that said there are 2 times in a woman's life when she loves pink. Once when she's 7, and when she's in menopause. And it's also like, no, actually, menopause is in the rearview mirror, baby, and I'm fine. In any event, I love pink. I want a pink girl's bike. I'm looking at a black BMX boy's bike. And I remember I said to Uncle Mikey, thank you, but like, why did you get me a boy's bike? And I think he said it fell off the truck. And I was like, well, I get that, you know. And then I started to look at the other pictures in the album, and all the stuff from Uncle Mikey was never wrapped. And he would always say it fell off the truck. And I remember thinking, my Uncle Mikey is so lucky, because whenever he's driving behind these trucks, the things are falling off the truck. And then he brings them over for Christmas, and it's so nice. I swear to God, I didn't even know it was an expression till I was watching The Sopranos. And then somebody says, it fell off the truck. I'm like, wait a minute. Uncle Mikey wasn't a tailor. Or maybe he was a tailor with a sideline. And by that time, you're all like pissed off because you're looking at the pictures. My first thing is to my parents, what are you thinking here, guys? You're receiving stolen goods. I'm a lawyer. We're talking felonious family type stuff. And also, by the way, this is petty of me, but I'll say it. Why stop now? Couldn't you wrap it? If you get a re-gift, don't you wrap it? Do you leave the tag? Oh, to Lisa. I go, I don't freaking want this. I go, to Sandy. I don't go, here. I mean, it just seemed like the least you could do. And then I started to look more and more. Maybe this happens as you get older too. You start to learn about your family, and then you realize you don't want to know any of it. And then I start to look at other family pictures, right? And I see that at the weddings, all the people are dancing. They have their purses on their shoulders. And I remember I said to my cousin, why do they always have the purse? Why don't they? He said, you don't leave your purse at the table in this family. And then I had a memory. You know how things come to you? You lie awake at night. Did that happen? Yes, that was your second marriage. It was a frigging nightmare. No. What I remembered was that I went to Penn. Right? We have one other alum here somewhere. And I met a guy there. He had red hair. He was not Italian. I brought him home to my cousins in South Philly. And I said, this is Joe. He's from Penn. And my cousin Sunday said, which one? Because Penn is evidently slang for penitentiary, which I hadn't known, because that's not part of the Ivy League part of the education. And so you get the idea, and I started to think about all of this stuff and just about my family history and why they have such a sort of a kind of a passing acquaintance with legal things. You know, in the extended family, what is going on? Especially since I'm a lawyer, and when I want to sound kind of pretentious, I really believe in the rule of law, and I believe in justice. I mean, all the books are about family, but they're also about justice. And so I started to think about all of those things, brought me to Eternal, which, by the way, on a serious note, was came out of me be lucky enough to take a class with Philip Roth at Penn, who taught there for a year. I don't know, there was like 20 kids in the class. We were all wrapped. And this was Philip Roth, right? He's telling, now the late, great Philip Roth, he would tell us what you'd have a syllabus, what to read. You would come in, you would listen. He would sit in a chair. It was amazing. It was like taking physics from Einstein. He would lecture for 2 hours, no notes, just, I'm going to tell you now what's going on in this book. He would tell you why the book was written when it was written, really important. He would tell you why the subject matter was chosen by this author, because he made sure he knew that too. Why this chapter here, why this sentence, break it down bit by bit by bit. Why this verb? And one of the things he introduced me to was Primo Levi. And Primo Levi was an Italian Jewish chemist who lived during the time of fascism in Italy and was arrested by the Nazis when they came in, sent to Auschwitz, and thank God survived to write the incredible memoir, Survival in Auschwitz. You may have read some Holocaust literature, and I hope that you do. If you have not read this, I recommend it. The point that Philip Roth wanted to make to us, and it's a point that I think serious readers would be interested in, wasn't really about Auschwitz per se. His point was that any story you tell, including the stories you tell yourselves, or the story you'll go home with tonight, any story you tell is told from a unique perspective, and that perspective is everything. That's the truth part of our show, right? That's Francis Ford Coppola. He's going to tell the story from a certain perspective. So you think, oh, I've read Holocaust memoirs. Well, you haven't read one written by Primo Levi, who, being Italian, is raised on Dante, who knows Inferno and Purgatorio and Paradiso like the back of his hand. And so when you put an Italian Jewish chemist in Auschwitz, he is going to compare it to Inferno, because he knows the levels of hell in a poem. And is there a better analogy for a concentration camp? And in the chapter, which I believe is chapter 6, he actually tells the Nazi guard that. He educates a Nazi guard on Dante. Wow is right. And so I said, I want to make that into a story. Of course I make it fiction, because partly, listen, I'm an amateur historian, but I want people to understand what happened to Italy during fascism, and also what happened to the Jews of Rome, which remarkably was a story that was not well known. I couldn't even believe it. I was like, okay, I guess you're going to have to change everything to tell it. And I did in Eternal. It's a girl, but you have to still keep it in a personal experience. So let's pretend that you're a young girl. I was that. I can't remember, but I was. And what's your first experience in sort of your growing into your young girlness? Well, frankly, it's getting a bra. And I remember when I was in 5th grade, and I didn't wear a bra, I wore an undershirt. Do you remember undershirts? This is an undershirt. They call it a camisole because they can charge you more. It's just an undershirt. I don't care if it's silk or poly or whatever the hell it is. Okay, so I like undershirts. So I wore an undershirt, and all the girls came up to me, you should wear them, Brian. I was like a tomboy. I said, that memory came back to me. It's the first chapter of Eternal. Girls come up to her, you need a bra. Oh my God, her name's Elisabetta. She's just a girl, but she has 2 friends who are boys, and she kind of has a little crush on them. There's Sandro, who's brilliant and a math prodigy, and he's Jewish, and he lives in the ghetto, so-called ghetto. And then there's Marco, who's super hot and the popular kid in class, and she has a crush on him too, and she can't decide, but they're all dear friends and they can't decide. I gave Marco something that I've done a lot of research for and fundraising for, which is dyslexia. Marco has dyslexia, and Marco, for me, answered the question, why did the Italians follow fascism? You may have heard that it's because Mussolini made the trains run on time. That's not true. If you have been to Rome, does anything run on time? No, they don't care about time. They care about pasta and wine and love. That's all they care about. And believe me, we'd all live a little longer. And in any event, I said, I want to understand why people followed Mussolini. And so I read all about Mussolini, and every time he says the same thing. He taught Romans that they were very, very special, merely because they were Roman. You're better than everybody else. And that gives Marco enormous pride, because he can't read and he feels dumb and he doesn't feel as smart as his friend Sandro. And that he spoke to that self-esteem, and that is the beginning of fascism. You're great, you're greater, and then it becomes violence and force. As Primo Levi said, his incredible quote, he said, as long as you think you're different from another human being, you will think you're better than another human being. And if you think you're better than another human being, you will think that human being is other than you. And in the end, there is a camp. Incredible. And loyalty led to that, because in a way, I was asking another question. It's more Italians behaving badly. Why did the mafia begin life in Italy? Why in Sicily? It really was. Mussolini's was the first fascist party. The first mafia family was in Sicily. Why? And then you start to look at the exploration of that. So that's what loyalty is about. Oh, I have to make it fiction. Okay, I have a kid thrown into to actually a mental institution. And who's going to get him out? Ain't nobody going to get him out, because the police are corrupt. We leave it to a lawyer. And a lawyer who actually follows St. Paul. And there actually was such a group, and I discovered this secret organization and where they meet in Sicily, and I go in the church, and you can read about it, or you can also see it on my website, because Laura and I went and we took videos. But the bottom line is this. You're trying to think about what matters to you. And because you're just a person who's like a lady in the suburbs, you're trying to write about that stuff in a way that is so true that it makes it universal. And that's true whether it's fiction or nonfiction. When I started to write these sort of funny books like Why My Husband Will Be a Dog, Why My Third Husband Will Be a Dog, I was at a library fundraiser, and I was a group of women, and they were all talking about they're on their second marriage, and they have 3 dogs, and they're on their 4th marriage, and they have 5 dogs, and I'm like, something's happening here. There's a relationship. You're trading in the guy for a corgi, and you know what? And I started to think about that, and I thought, you can make a joke of it, Lisa, but also that the thing about this life is you really don't know where you will lead, where it will go. You don't know where you're going. It just happens to you, and you try to navigate it in some way. I didn't think that I would be so remarkably celibate at my age. I mean, single. I have many blessings. Some, you can't have everything. And what I was among was a group of women who, just like me, I have 2 divorces and I had 4 dogs. I just lost 2. So my dog to divorce count is like, I got to get, I can't increase the divorce thing that fast, but I'm going to get some dogs. PDQ, baby. And what I realize a little bit is that these are just everyone, human beings, trying to make themselves happy in this world, in this little bandwidth we have, in this one slice of time that we share. I know I have readers here that I've seen for a long time and friends from 30 years ago. And I feel like our job is to make ourselves happy and to put that goodness into the world. And part of that goodness is that connection. I don't think that is anywhere more evident than in a library. This is my secret personal theory. A library, just like a library card is not just a way to take the books out, a library is more than a collection of books. A library embodies a community. Just like the Roadster's Nancy Drew, the library is this community in this room. Books are what bind us. Think about book clubs, the rise in book clubs. As we've been work from home and more atomized, we form book clubs. I used to have a book club party before COVID at my house every year. 1,000 people came. I know, I cooked for them all. No, I didn't cook. But I bought food from them all, and that's almost the same thing. And how many of you are in a book club? Right. But probably longer than 10 years. Yeah, 20 years, right? Forever. Now, I don't want to tell you, you know more about book clubs than I do, but I will tell you my observation. And it came from a time I went to a book club and they asked me to come. I'm like, okay, great. And so they're reading my book, and then the first 5 minutes are good questions about me and the book and everything. And then the next 40 minutes are about my dog, my hair, my bed. And at some point, somebody looks up and she says to me, oh God, I'm so sorry. Because we're women, we apologize for existing. First, I exist. I'm sorry that I exist. Secondly, I'm sorry because we're supposed to be talking about your book. And I said, but you are. And I mean that. To me, anytime you talk to another living human being about a book, doesn't the conversation go, I like this part because X, and then it's the because X part. Here's the me part, here's the you part. I like this book because this struck home with me because when my dad, this made sense to me because this didn't make sense because that never could happen because my mother would have said, and all of a sudden, that intimacy that books build inter se between each other in the book club, between mother and daughter when they read together, all of that bond, that intimacy is built because 2 people are opening themselves up. If it's just me and you, I'm telling you my heart is open when I write these books. And I know your heart is open when you read them. And that connection is magic. And that connection is something that books have and nothing else has. Planet Fitness will never get a room like this. It's good for you, all right, but it doesn't build community the way these libraries do. They're built from you. You build them for each other. The connection is all. And that's why the truth matters, to sort of end up. That's what Francis Ford Coppola was trying to say. When he says everything in my novels is true, Why does it matter? Oh, you'll get a lot of hoity-toity authors and they'll all say the truth matters. And I'm going to secretly tell you why I think it is. Because it doesn't, you'll never go, oh my God, that's right, if it's not really true. And not sanitized BS sitcom true. When I started to write memoir, I started to write funny things. So I missed Irma Bombeck so much. And I thought the Philadelphia Inquirer could use a female columnist. And I'm like, that was sort of me. So I did that for 13 years. I still write a newsletter for free. You can read it every weekend. I wanted to write about being a woman alone in the world, making your way, trying to navigate all the stuff you have to navigate, and Google Maps, and your phone, and are your roots done? And boy, this bra is not worth the money. Like all that stuff, all the stuff that Irma Bombeck used to write about and Ellen Goodman used to write about. And when I started to write that, I said to myself, oh, I had to write about, for example, when I found my first gray chin hair and realized I was turning into an Amish man. Somebody has to say that. And to just deconstruct it for a minute, the reason that gets a laugh is because it's true. And what you have to do when you're writing a book or writing anything is you have to go, what's the really truest of the truiness? And it might be incredibly embarrassing. But if you don't go there, it's only worth it if you do. So to me, what libraries are about is that truth, that community. I really, really believe that is fundamental, not just to human happiness, reading. Well, I really do. Listen, I'm online. Follow me on Twitter, all that stuff. I'll tweet back at you. We're tweeting like crazy. But if I spend a half an hour on Twitter, I always spend a half an hour reading before I go to bed. I know the difference, don't you? You can feel it in your blood pressure, right? You can feel it in your soul. You're like, oh my God, wait a minute. Here you on Instagram. I don't have a boyfriend. I don't have a house. Look at that car. Oh, by the way, did you see my ring? Isn't it beautiful? This is my engagement ring. Oh, I'm not engaged. I bought it myself to remind myself to stay engaged with life. I bought it on Valentine's Day for myself. Sorry, I just need to mention that. Are you blind? Are you blind? What I'm trying to say is you spend time on Instagram and then you spend time with the book and you breathe out. That's the gift that books give us. That's the gift the truth gives us. It's not just fundamental for our happiness and our soul. I really do believe it's fundamental for democracy. These librarians are so cool and so nice and so brilliant and so down to earth that I'm not sure they even realize the gift they're giving kids walking in there over their threshold like me. So I want to say it. And I don't think they even realize how important they are to the welfare and the future of the very fundamentals of this country. It is the best country on earth. You are all fighting to keep democratic principles. By supporting the library, you are supporting each other in community, and you're supporting each other's hearts. And I couldn't be more grateful to be here today or to your librarians. So thank you very, very much. Okay. Okay.
Thank you so
Very
much,
cool.
Lisa.
Thank you very much.
Do we have a little bit of time for Q&A? Does anybody have a question?
Ask me anything, and I'll repeat the question or whatever.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
How hard was it for you to publish your first book? And who published it for you?
Okay. It was very hard. The question, you heard the question. Because you guys are so organized. Okay. So long story short, when I realized that my marriage wasn't going to work out the first time, so classy. Get in, Patch it in here, man. Anyway, I said, you have to find another job. And then where are you? I need to make eye contact with you. And I said, look, you're supposed to be, you studied the American contemporary novel at Penn. You had Philip Roth. You have some pretty pretentious ass credentials. Try to write one. And took me 5 years. I couldn't get rejected. I mean, people didn't even answer. I wrote a novel. I got the best rejection letter ever. It was from a New York agent. And he said, we don't have time to take any other authors, and if we did, we wouldn't take you. I see that guy about 10 years ago at Book Expo, which is our big speaking thing, which is all big. Guess who was the keynote speaker? Who wants to talk to me? The same guy. Lisa. I'm like, ugh. Oh, you don't even know. Look at my eyes. You don't even know how petty I am. I don't have time, dude, but if I had any time, it wouldn't be for you. So despite that dark, dark story, the answer to the question is 5 years. However, I heartily encourage you. Listen, come on. We're not babies. We know we had a little rejection. We can take it on the chin. We're hurricanes. We're earthquakes. Can they stop us? No, they cannot. No, they cannot. If you want to do it, keep trying to do it. I really would encourage you. There's no right way to do it. I don't write with an outline. Could you have guessed that? I just sit down and go, that's a good idea. And then try to write it. And I try to figure out actually every day what would actually happen. And I know it's not a great way to write a book, but it's otherwise to me, if you wrote it all out and then it would be like literary Mad Libs. I don't want to fill in the blanks. I feel like my anxiety will communicate to you, which is, that's my second marriage. Okay. So, but the other point I want to make to you that's very serious, which is that, it's that you should write because I will tell you, I've written 35 novels in 35 years. I'm celibate. I'm sublimating. I'm getting more done than all of you put together. If you want me to clean your basement, call me. There are many more ways to get into print now than there were 35 years ago. Avail yourself of one. That is a wonderful thing for democracy. We need more voices. We need diversity of voice. We want to hear your story. That was the point of my Primo Levi point. Oh my God, you think you've read a Holocaust memoir? Not till you've read Primo Levi's. Every story told by an individual deserves to be heard. And now there are means to do that. So I really, really would encourage you. Ask me anything else. I'm obviously in a mood to pontificate.
Yes, first I want to thank you for coming and just everything wonderful. I've always wanted to ask a novelist this, and I'm sure it varies from person to person, but when you start a novel with your premise and when you sit down in front of your typewriter or your legal pad, do you know how it ends?
Do you want the right answer or do you want the true answer?
I want your answer.
I do not. I don't know how it ends. I don't even know how it middles. The next book, The Truth About the Devil, which I think you guys are getting. Here's the idea I had. Because I love family so much. And here's family. And it's all like, there's dark stuff in family too. The tagline for The Truth About the Devlins is, are they a family or a conspiracy? Anyway. You know, families, we have roles. There's roles in families. And we get labeled a little bit sometimes. It's not always a great thing. And so in this family, the Devlins family, there's a kind of a ne'er-do-well, who, by the way, is a recovering alcoholic. And there's a golden boy brother. And the first chapter of the Devlins, the golden boy brother takes the ne'er-do-well aside and says to him, I just murdered somebody and I need you to help me bury this body. I go, well, that was just the idea I had. I go, Lisa, could you have an easy idea? You know, I never have an easy idea. And that's what you basically do. You go, well, what would everybody do next? What's the ne'er-do-well? He gets over the shock of the golden boy, and then you just tell it bit by bit what actually happened. You tell yourself the story as you go. Hemingway says, write drunk, edit sober. I don't do that, but I think what he meant is get the story down. Get it down, then get it good. And so that's how I always say it. So I just tell myself the story, and I believe that I've been president of Mystery Writers of America. I kind of want from where I'm supposed to know about suspense. I actually think part of the reason that what I do works for me is I don't know the ending, so I can't telegraph it. If somebody would friggin' tell me the ending of the story, my life would be a lot easier, but it's not. But I like, it works for, that means I'm in a very anxious state because I don't know what's going to happen, but also I don't know what's going to happen. It's a lot like life that way too. I like that. Please, other questions where I'd be sillier.
What is your connection to apraxia?
So well, why don't you tell us a little about apraxia? You sound like you might know about it. It's in one of my
It's
books. Tell us about apraxia.
about Anna. That's the book. And apraxia is, well, it's a brain dysfunction that you don't have control over muscles to say what you want to say. For example, if you have a cracker crumb here and you feel it, you can lick it off. But if somebody says, lick your lip and get the cracker, you can't do it. Motivational muscle movement. And you had a character who had it, and that character had to call 911. Big problem.
Right. Right? Smart people read, guys, right? You just see that? I think what really matters in novels is character. So I spend a lot of time really thinking about character and getting truth into character. You know, like Nancy Drew, I said, I can't remember a single plot, not a single plot, but I've never forget Nancy Drew. And so I have a good friend who is a lawyer of special needs children and who gets services for special kids with special needs in the Philadelphia School District, which is really, you know, God's work. And I've learned a lot about that. And I really wanted to get diversity into my books, get these images into this culture, just like I wanted women to be the main characters in my books. And that's why I started with Rosado and Associates, an all-woman law firm. By the way, it's going to be a TV series. It'll be a streaming series. I know, yay. And so is Bennett. So finally, well, then that'd be nice. But I really wanted to write about that. I wanted to write it. There's another book I have called Damage where, well, I'm getting off far afield. But the bottom line is, I think it's really important to highlight what that struggle is like for a child, what that is like for a parent. And it's real. I mean, I really think it's important that characters feel real and be real. And for some reason, like the Rosado family feels real to me. Like Mary's family is real. I can't explain it. I feel that way about anything I read that's well written, right? You're like, the so-called book hangover, because you can't shake these people. I didn't think when I started writing about Mary D'Annunzio that there would be a series, but I couldn't leave them. I have separation anxiety. When I get in the car, I'm going to miss you guys. Like, you're really nice people. You know, Maureen took such good care of me. Everyone's like, do you need anything? Julie, I mean, they're all great. And I get attached easy. So, like, don't hug me in the line, because I will hug you, and then it's all over. We might even get married. You never even know. So I forget what that's the answer to. Oh, yes. So that's why I want there to be truth in books and all truth in people in my books. Did I say that right? Okay. Thank you for your question. Yes.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. What are your thoughts on listening to audiobook versus reading on a tablet versus reading an actual paper book?
Oh my God, what a great question. I love all those things. All those things are equal to me. No judgment. Judgment-free zone, Planet Fitness. I didn't even go to Planet Fitness. It's really a stupid thing to be judgmental about. Sorry, look at me being judgmental about being judgmental. That's nice. That's good, Lise. Way to. Because to me, every one of my books, where did you go? I wouldn't need to see you too. Every one of my books, I say out loud in my house. I say it out loud so it sounds like someone tells a story, because we're a nation of storytellers. We tell stories. You're going to go home. They're going to, how's that thing go? She might be nuts. And then you're going to tell the story. And so I love story in all its form. To me, that is worrying about that kind of stuff. I'm not saying you're worrying about it, but I read these online debates. I'm like, really? But because to me, the lawyers would say it's style over substance. It's a distinction without a difference. If you serve me chocolate cake, you can put it on china, you can put it on a paper plate. You can stand over the sink and shove it in your mouth. And you know what? It's going to be great. However you eat it, whatever you eat it on. And that's the thing, how I feel about books. Now, that said, I walk the dogs a lot, and I love audiobooks because I've become completely, it's like my new religion. I've become completely, I love that I have that ability, control, this wonderful time we live in. Oh, wait. I should have been talking into my breasts a lot earlier. In any event, I love audiobooks. I think that's because it's someone telling you a story. Right? You can clean your counters, you can walk your dogs, you can do whatever you want to do. I've even had an audiobook in the shower, which will show you it in any event you get there. Did I answer your question ad nauseum? Because that's my goal. Right, and it depends on what you like. I find now, this is maybe because I'm a bear of very little brain, as Winnie the Pooh used to say, but I get really immersed in an audiobook. In fact, if I listen to an audiobook when I'm driving, I miss exits all the time. Like, in other words, what gets preeminence is the book. So even if I'm cleaning like sometimes I listen to an audiobook when I walk the dogs and I can't believe I'm home already, and I don't know what happened. So that's a bad thing. But I mean, so for me, it's really what works for you. But I guess I want to say to you, all welcome into the light. However you listen, however you consume a story, it's all wonderful. But I should, as a quick aside, say, that said, bookstores matter. I want to take a second to say thank you, Ivy Bookstore. They matter for the same reason libraries matter. And I'm just going to be real, if you don't open your wallet and spend money in a bookstore, they won't be here anymore. They're closing right and left. I come down here and sign a lot. You have wonderful independent bookstores here. Ivy's here. They made a point of coming. I'm just saying in the future, so that to answer your question, it's great that there's audio and it's great that there's but I always want a bookstore. I get lost in a bookstore like my dad. I was like, this is like a hardware store for girls, because my dad used to never come out. And I go, Dad, go ahead, I'm sorry. Wait, this man had a question. No, wait, Terry, wait, he had a question. No, it's okay.
Thank you for an excellent presentation. I have a very quick question and one comment. The question I have is, at what point in your process do you decide on the title of the book?
That's a great question. I really try to think of a title. The question was, when do you think of a title? I really try to think of a title soon. Now, the problem with a book is about 120,000 words. A title is usually 1 or 2. I cannot say hello in 1 or 2 words. I need about 35 and I'm warming up. So sometimes it comes to me early. I love when it comes to me early, because then I'm writing to it to a certain extent, but that's what you're talking about. Sometimes I don't know what I'm talking about till the very end, which is very true, but not impressive.
The other comment I'd like to also make is, when and if you ever stop writing, you ought to be a stand-up comedian.
Thank you. Shout out her. I do. Do I read poetry or write poetry? I do read it, but I don't sometimes. But I don't write it. Oh my God, no. I'm not that good, Tara. Yeah, well, I'm Italian, so we don't say anything less. We go for the more opera, right? We're over the top is where we live. Yes.
Hi, thanks for coming. I was wondering, do you personally ever become emotionally stressed or strained when you're putting one of your characters through something difficult?
What do you think is the answer to that question?
I think yes. And so when that happens, how do you deal with it? Or do you try to, I guess, balance things out, or do you?
No balancing.
No, drink more coffee. I don't know.
Balancing is overrated. I get completely involved. Look, everybody does it different. You'll have the normal authors at some point. They have lives, they have husbands, they make a little dinner. I'm like an obsessed person. I am writing whatever I'm writing, I really am in it. I care a lot about it. It sounds weird, but you almost put yourself into a bit of I think fugue state. I think spell. I think about the book. I also only read around that time. Book like Loyalty, perfect example. Everything about Sicily, I'm reading about Sicily. I'm watching Sicilian movies. It's only period fiction, because otherwise, to me, it's a headspace. And so I am completely emotionally involved. I'm worried and stressed out. Really, you didn't want to see me today. This is the best I ever look in my life. I don't look this good. Okay, I look like, really. So yes, I think for me, I'm emotionally invested in the whole thing. Sometimes I have a hard time shaking a book. I have a hard time shaking the characters. Like I said, if it's Rosado, I'm going to make it a series. I thought I'd write 1. I wrote 17. For 17 years, I wrote about the same women. I loved it. So if that's how you're feeling, and it sounds like you are when you're writing, and I really want to encourage you, and ask me anything about writing and stuff too, Whatever is right for you is right for you. But that's good. I think that's a good thing if that happens. It might make you a little annoying to be around. But sometimes you say, like my daughter is writing too. God bless her. She grew up. She wrote a novel for Ghosts of Harvard. I'm going to plug her. It's wonderful. She's working on her second one. Sometimes she's working. She'll come home and visit, and I'll go, I'm thinking about this. And she'll go, yeah, I'm thinking about this. We're both annoying to be around. We love each other. But what are you going to do? The thought I always had, and I'm going on, I'm sorry, but the thought I always had is, I am in the middle of something. Sam Levinson, who's a wonderful director, said, being a writer is like having homework every night of your life. It's really true. A lot of times I feel like I'm in the middle of something. So people go, do you want to have lunch? I go, I don't. Actually, I don't, because I'm in the middle of something. So anyway, that's a long answer. I'm boring you to tears, I can tell.
What authors do you like to read?
Oh my God, there's almost no one I have, well, that sounds kind of weird. I read a lot, and I read really widely. I love memoir, I love thrillers and fiction, I love Adriana Trigiani, Harlan Coben, David Baldacci. I love Baldacci, he's become a personal friend. He is a brilliant author all the time, every book. Michael Connelly, Kristen Hanna, Louise Penny, memoir, I love. The Truth About the Devlins is, as I said, about a recovering alcoholic. I read a lot of books Lit by Mary Carr, Night of the Gun by David Carr. They're not related. I just love memoir a lot. The thing about the Devlins is he's a recovering alcoholic, but he's really a person in recovery. And I thought that is so good, because the truth is maybe we're not going to have a problem with alcohol in our lives, although many people are touched by that. But sometimes we feel like we're in recovery. I feel like if I can just say for a moment that we're all a little bit in recovery. We've had COVID. We've lost people to COVID. We know people who have long COVID. We're recovering from many things and a lot of upheaval as a nation. And I sort of liked the idea in terms of truth and character, that he's not a character, he's a character who has failed. He's a character who's kind of messed up, and he's in recovery. And I think if you've lived long enough, you've made some mistakes. Hello. Thing one and thing two, marriage one and marriage two. I made mistakes. I embrace my mistakes, right? What are you going to do? You're going to try to figure it out, and you're going to recover. The question is what you do after you fail, and that's what I kind of wanted to write about. I have no idea what that was the answer to, but I'm sure it was an excellent answer. I feel certain it was right on point.
So, Lisa.
Yes.
This is the voice from
time
over
to
the
go?
side. Yeah. I'm going to use my announcer voice we talked about.
Oh, good. I love your announcer voice.
So I just wanted to say thank you. Lisa, I know people purchase books. We want to make sure they give Lisa a big round of applause. Thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you very, very much. You guys are a team. That's very sweet of you. Very sweet. Thank you very, very much. You're
Yes,
just too
it's
kind.
just
Thank
wonderful.
you.
So exciting to have you here. Everybody, if you're going to get your book signed, if you wait for just a second, Maureen is going to take Lisa over to the signing table. So anyone who needs to get a book personalized, please head over that way. If you're leaving us now, thank you so much for joining Baltimore County Public Library for this event, sponsored by the Foundation for Baltimore County Public Library. A few things just for a few people who came in after we had started. If you did not get to sign up for your free copy of her forthcoming title, please stop at the library table out at the outside, and we'll take care of that. The Ivy is still here to purchase books. If you're heading out now, please go ahead and help. You can leave through those two doors. If you want to get your book signed, personalized, we're going to have you exit through this door. Ms. Scottoline is in the hallway over there, ready at the book signing table. If you need assistance, please let one of the library staff know. Just give us a wave. If you need parking, let us know that as well. And thank you all for joining us.